There are things outside of our control, right? There are earthquakes, there are pandemics, there are rainstorms, there are blackouts, there are Wi-Fi going down, there is Wi-Fi going down. There are a whole bunch of things that can happen that would change the nature of how we do business. And one of the things I have every client do, and I encourage everybody I talk to do, is draw a picture of their business model. Because there are a few things in the business model that you can control as the business owner, both financially and as a strategist. Hey, I'm Pam Pryor, and this is the Cash Flow Podcast. We're going to talk about everything related to money in your business. Without further ado, let's hop right in. And welcome back to Cash Flow. Here we are. Today we're doing one of my favorite, my favorite beer in the beer brews segment. In news, we're going to talk about earthquakes. What does that have to do with anything? Just you wait. I'm going to make sure you know. And then finally, we're going to talk about tax accountants. I know we hate talking about taxes, but tax accountants can be your best friend. But there's one thing they're not. And I'll make sure you know what that is when we're done. Join me. We are here with my very favorite beer in the world. I can't wait for you to see it and taste it. And I know you've taken a look at it already, but you will see from this picture I show you here that it's a nice, clear beer. It looks almost Pilsner-esque. Make sure we get a good shot there. Does it show up? Okay, good. Almost Pilsner-esque, but tiny little haze. And I'm going to go for my sip. Oh, that just tastes like beer should taste. I can't describe it as a particular thing, but it hits you. It's not too bitter. It's not too spicy. It's smooth. It's cold. It's got the right level of carbonation. It is like a beer built for me. Now, thing you need to know about this one, it is also 8.5% alcohol content, so that may be one of the reasons I like it. But also, it comes with the pink elephants that you saw. Okay, those pink elephants are amazing. Let's talk about the brewery. The brewery is actually in Belgium, in Melle. Belgium actually happens to be where my very favorite sandwich is from too. And if I ever go back, which I may now have to do because now I know where the brewery is, I got to find that sandwich as well. The ham and cheese sandwich with hard-boiled egg on it and an amazing type of mayonnaise on a hard, long sub roll. It was unbelievable. My bet is it would go great with Delirium Tremens. So, Delirium Tremens is the beer. The brewery is pronounced Hoyka. It's a Belgian, or I'm sorry, I think he was Belgian. But the brewery's in Melle, Belgium, and it was bought by this gentleman, Hoyka, in 1906. And he bought a brewery that had been making beer since the 1600s. So, we're probably tasting part of the very first beer that was ever made at a priory or at a monastery in my very glass. And Delirium Tremens, the reason I tried this beer, it's at one of my favorite beer haunts, but they were voted, they won in 2008, and this is about how long I've been drinking it, the World Beer Championships in Chicago, Illinois. Now, the coolest thing about the World Beer Championships is that now I know there are World Beer Championships, and I'm going to have to find it. And we're going to have to go record from a beer championship, and probably from the Hoyka brewery in Belgium. So the other thing about this is by a gentleman named Stuart. I forget his last name, but Francis will find it and drop it in the comments for YouTube and both in the podcast notes as well. They were voted not just as the 50th, in the 50 greatest beers book in the world, but the best beer in the 50 greatest beers book in the world. And if you are out and about and you see the blue can with the pink elephants, you definitely want to give it a try. You can thank me in the comments because it is a dream. Cheers.
What's your PBKPI?
My PBKPI, what's our scale, 1 to 5?
1 to 10.
1 to 10. It's a 12. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with this beer. There is everything right about it. Out of a can, out of a bottle, out of one of the big bottles. The big bottles are really cool. They're made of ceramic. and it's like a light gray with this label on it that you saw the picture of. But if you're a beer drinker, definitely get out give this one a try and comment back. Like and subscribe to see what other beers we try and when we're going to do our beer tour, because you know it's coming. All right, in what's news, if you're on the East Coast, couple things have happened in the last few days. Some would call it Armageddon, but we had an earthquake, we had torrential rains, and today we had the total eclipse. So now you know when this was recorded. But here's the thing. These are all things that happen. They happen to all happen here within 3 days, right? But think about, this brought me way back to the pandemic. And the thing that I think every business owner needs to have on their mind at all times, because what this proves, what this brings up, is that there are things outside of our control, right? There are earthquakes, there are pandemics, there are rainstorms, there are blackouts, there are Wi-Fi going down, there is Wi-Fi going down. There are a whole bunch of things that can happen that would change the nature of how we do business. And one of the things I have every client do, and I encourage everybody I talk to do, is draw a picture of their business model. Because there are a few things in the business model that you can control as the business owner, both financially and as a strategist. And since there are so many things outside of our control that we can't manage, we want to be aware of a few things in our business model so that as things come up, we're prepared, we're alert, we've thought about what might happen if. This is not to worry, this is to plan, okay? And let me give you some examples. When we first had the pandemic, one of the things I did on my whiteboard right behind me, as a matter of fact, was drew a picture of basically moving Earth. So this is why the earthquake came to me. In an earthquake, for example, the whole Earth shifts. So if you're standing underneath a beautiful cliff and there's water coming down and that water is money and you've got a profitable business model and things are going beautifully, all of a sudden there's an earthquake and the Earth shifts and that cliff moved over. All of a sudden, you got no more water, no more money coming down on you, and it's moved over there. And one of the things we need to be able to do is adapt. And in the pandemic, there were a number of examples of this. Like, first of all, the impact that it had. And I'm going to go through 3 or 4 things you always need to pay attention to in your business. I'm going to speak about them here in examples, but then I'll round them up for you in the end. And this happened, I was going to normally tell a client story here, but I'm telling a broader story because a lot of people went through this during the pandemic. People needed to identify what in their business was going to change as a result of nobody being able to leave their house. And sure enough, that was a significant impact on people. So artists all of a sudden lost their work. They could no longer go and sing or do an art gallery showing or anything that was in public. Anybody supporting artists all of a sudden lost those clients. I had some clients as a bookkeeping business. Those clients went away because they didn't have any income. They didn't have anything to do initially. Then what are some other things that could happen? For example, so that's an example of a client no longer needing the service that we offered. So another example is an earthquake, for example, could cut off all lines of communication or power from a single source supplier that you have. You get everything you need to make whatever you sell, or they drop ship it for you, and boom, right there, the minute that earthquake happens, you can no longer access any of that information or any of that product. So you can't sell what you sold before. So there's another example. So the couple of places, the 4 places you really need to focus, I think, to identify what could be at risk are where you have a single vendor or supplier, so that if something happens to them, what's your backup plan? Where are you reliant on one customer or one type of customer? For example, artists. Like if you do a bookkeeping business and your entire bookkeeping business is serving singers and all of a sudden singers have no work, that's going to have an impact for you. So who are your clients and what might take them out of being able to use your services anymore? The third is, what do you do when things move over? So what you need to understand third is, what is it that's your core expertise? You've been selling something that's worked before the earthquake, before the pandemic, before whatever made your world shift. But now, what is it about your core that you can now use to provide a different service or a different product that is needed today for the people that are now over here, the waterfall to your right? No longer any waterfall here, the waterfall's over there. What do I have that I can offer over there? And I'm going to give you a very specific example. As a CFO, I had a lot of artist clients and lost them when we started the pandemic because they couldn't afford and didn't need to keep their finances up to date during that period. But they all needed to know how to access the government money that was made available. So I said, hey, my core competence is finance. My core competence is knowing how to file these kind of reports, knowing how to teach people how to file these kind of reports, knowing how to get money, what to do with it once we got it, how to make sure it doesn't run out, how to pay it back if we have to. So all of my clients were all of a sudden lined up under the waterfall over there trying to figure out how to get that government money. Boom, what could I do? I could help them do that. Another example, and a lot of people did this, they had in-person events as their primary income source. You all know we all went to a lot of them together. Probably I've met you at some of them. When that went away, a lot of them went, and now we have these beautifully built Zoom studios. But initially, what did they do? They're like, okay, the only way I can still be effective is to come to people in their home via some sort of electronics. And this is where Zoom took off, of course. But it also meant maybe changing the way we did things. And you could see that evolve over that time period, right? From very rudimentary, hey, even Tony Robbins is just sitting there on his iPhone in his house, to, these plastered billboards of 600 streaming TVs looking at him and, doing high production type events that were just virtual instead of in person. So earthquakes happen, eclipses happen, blackouts happen, single source suppliers go away, single types of customers go away. These are all things to be really aware of in your business, is those things that you control a little bit, so that when something happens that you don't control, you can keep that business alive. You can keep going at what you're doing. The only thing we know is going to be consistent is change. We know there is always going to be change. So your job as that entrepreneur is to always be stretching yourself, to be sure you're aligned with the current needs. Once somebody has an earthquake, and if it ruins their home, they have very different needs than when they lived in a mansion and needed a car to get them to the airport. Two very different sets of needs there. How can you and what you do adapt to any one of those kinds of emergencies rising up? Basically know what all your inputs are, know what all your outputs are, know what you do to them in the middle to create your outputs, and then be aware of what you need to do to make sure you can keep doing that. When what you're doing in the middle is your special sauce, what else can that special sauce do to make your product stay viable, reasonable, and what people need as things evolve and change, but also as every now and then an earthquake hits. So be prepared for the earthquake. So one of the things I often hear from people when I talk to them about their finances is in sort of a resigned voice. They'll say, oh, well, I have a CPA. I have a tax accountant. And everybody needs a tax accountant, especially this time of year. It's important to chat about that. But your tax accountants have very specific jobs that they're doing for you. And they are primarily to get your taxes filed, keep you out of jail, keep your penalties down to a minimum, but then also to protect your wealth, right? To figure out what are the best strategies for you to manage your wealth. And there's huge value in what these professionals offer, because I will tell you the reason I don't offer taxes is because that legislation, that change is moving with the wind. Like political tides move it, economic tides move it. All sorts of things make that literature change constantly. And you have to be up and aware and know what's going on. And these professionals do that in an extraordinary manner. So as you start to make money, I highly recommend that you get a tax accountant. And be aware, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but there are tax accountants who just file taxes, like H&R Block would file your taxes. And there are tax accountants who virtually are wealth managers with you and understand that there are strategies that you can incorporate in your business and in your personal life with the goal of minimizing ethically, legally, all the things, minimizing your tax burden. And I am the first one to say I never give tax advice. I will sometimes tell you what I would do in a situation, but that is never tax advice, and you should always consult a professional when you're talking about taxes. They are a very important ally to have in your court. But there's something they're not, okay? As a business owner, as a wealthy person who's taking care, not even as a wealthy person, as any person who's filing your tax return, etc., you need that role in place. But as a business owner, you also need to understand some things that your tax accountant, not for any bad reason, but just doesn't care about. They're not there to handle this information and give it to you. When I talk to people and they say, oh, I have a CPA, they sound somewhat disappointed, somewhat resigned, because they're saying it as if, oh, they're not giving me the financial support I need. You know, I talk to my tax accountant 3 or 4 times a year, and they don't tell me this stuff that I need to know. Well, I got to tell you, it's not their job to tell you that kind of stuff. When that stuff is things like, I'm having a cash flow problem. I need to scale, and I don't know what my capacity is. I need to know if I'm profitable in all of my business lines. I need to know if I'm profitable overall. I need to understand why I can look profitable on my profit and loss statement, but don't have any money in the bank. Those aren't questions that your tax accountant is focused on answering for you. That's not their role. So don't be disappointed in them for not covering that. That is the role of a CFO. That is the role of a controller if you're a smaller company, a bookkeeper if you're a really small company, but then as you get bigger and bigger, a CFO. And your CFO is focused on those financial matters that relate to running the business. Running the business that creates the income that you then go to your tax accountant and have protected. And it's important to keep your tax accountant up to date with what your CFO is doing so that you know and they know, hey, here's how much money I'm going to make next year, so this is what we should be doing for tax strategies. But they're not going to get in there and do what a real company financial person's going to do, from bookkeeper on up. A CFO is going to focus on, or a controller is going to focus on, if you're a little bit of a smaller company, things like everything that I listed. Hey, when I sell this product, how much do I make? When I put this much money into my business, how much does it return to me? What's the value of my business if I decide to sell it? What do I need to do to prepare my business so that I can exit and sell it? What do I need to put in place so that I can scale my business? How do I best keep track of the money we make and the money we spend? How do I do a forecast? How do I do any kind of planning for financing? Oh, I'm going to need to borrow some money, or I should borrow some money. There's good debt. What's the bad debt? The person who's going to focus on those things for you is a CFO. So I need you to understand that a tax accountant and a CFO are very, very different. And it's not just like they're the difference between washing your dishes in the sink and washing them in the dishwasher. They're really doing 2 completely different tasks. One is your clothes washer and one is your dishwasher. So I really want to make that clear, because I think many people have that assumption that, hey, I've got a CPA, they should be watching out for this for me. And the truth of the matter is no, you don't. If you have a CPA and a tax accountant, you have somebody that's watching your back for sure, related to the taxes, the IRS, paying on time, taking advantages of as many tax strategies as you can. But it's not a CFO. It's not somebody you have that's going to answer those questions about how to actually run the business that's generating the wealth that you need to have protected and taxes filed for. I hope that makes sense. It's a question I get a lot, and wanted to record this on the podcast so that people could refer to it when they come across that specific question themselves. Drop your comments below if you've had this experience of kind of thinking a CPA might be doing some of this for you, and now understand a little bit differently that that's a very different financial role. Would love to hear your comments. Like and subscribe as well. Every bit of that you do for us is so appreciated, so that we can get word out to more and more entrepreneurs that finance is fun. You can have brews, bucks, and news and still be profitable. See you next week. I hope that video was helpful, and I hope you subscribe to my channel for more information on finances in your business.